this is Kitchen Squirrel, and welcome back to 69 FM The Head.
Recording.
Grr.
Oh, you're making a reference. Never mind.
Yeah, that's classic.
And then, want to go spin the wheel?
Yes, what's our next
you were
topic?
spinning the wheel while we were down for that save it.
Wheel of topics. Turn. Tell us a topic that we should talk about.
You better pray it's not books, because I could literally just go on, but nobody will get a word in edgeworth. If
I don't really have anything for books other than I hate one particular book and another
speaking
book.
of which, though, like books you're looking forward to.
Books you're looking forward to. Oh, just books. Then.
Do audiobooks count?
Yeah.
we just do books in general.
You want to do just
There
books
is-
in general? Because it's
Yeah,
a
let
whole
Kenshin go first, because my whole thing is gonna fucking just be about animal.
It's again, it's I didn't put this out of record. It's been a while since we actually talk about those, but I say recently, but more like I got into this about 2-3 years ago. It was just I download on Audible.
Sponsor. Throw that out there because it's not real.
But anyway,
it's not sponsored.
But anyway, I got really heavy into lit RPGs, and the first lit RPG I actually started listening to was
I'll just say what the lit part means.
literature.
Okay, because you know that there's a whole group of people out there that don't know lit is short for literature. They think that shit means fire, that it's lit. Like, you gotta specify.
Alright, so
This RPG is
but
fire.
the thing is, though, it sounds weird when you say literature RPGs. It's like what?
Oh, too bad. Some people are just dumb. You gotta spell it out.
Well, regardless, though, I got the lit RPGs, which lit means literature. There, you want to specify it? I'll specify it. Regardless, I got the lit
What does
RPGs and
RPG stand for?
rock paper grenade.
Yeah, yes. Let's go.
well, again, so I got the lit RPGs though, and and I'm spending most of my free coins on. I get free coins monthly on Audible on doing on lit RPGs and stuff. And whenever I get too impatient though, this is that meme going like, "You got any more of them? Them books?" So I'll occasionally spend about $15 on 3 more coins and stuff. But regardless, though, the first one actually got me into the whole entire genre itself. It was this one title called "He Who Fights with Monsters." And for those who don't know it, though, it's a good read, or in this case, I'm on Audible, a good listen to. It has a good, compelling story. There are some cringe stuff here or there, but that's the whole point of it, though, because even the main character himself is trying to, quote unquote, trying to grow out of his Chuny ways. But Chuny is also stands for Chunibyo, which is this off tangent of being so edgy to put you're so edgy to the point where your edginess is now kind of cringe, that type of thing. And but the thing is, ever since he got into his seat of power in the current volumes of the book story itself, he sort of just linked into his edgy ways. But the point is, though, is that the whole entire thing is that he got his new world, and he's slowly but surely getting used to his new life and that type of thing. He is a Japanese man named Jason Asano, and he lives in Australia, which is why I suggested to you, Edward, because I thought that you would like an argument to find that he is a Japanese man who's from Australia, who mostly speaks in an Australian accent.
Oh, good.
But and the reason why it goes off tangent why I'm sorry about this part though is well, besides the fact that I'm reading a bunch of titles of RPGs on I can go like Edward, I can go on and on about the titles I've been listening to is like the Primal Hunter, System Universe. The one I'm currently listening to right now is the series is called Unbound, and let's see, they all go on the same concept. Well, except for Primal Hunter, but they all it's basically it's because of that deep down, I gotten so into the genre because of the fact that I was so into isekai animes, and so the fact that there are like some American stories that also do isekai. And yes, now I consider Wizard of Oz also an isekai story.
I mean, technically is by definition.
Yeah, but anyway, so like there's one I say I'm excited though is that I didn't for a whole entire year, because normally the creator named Shurtaloon would release at least one chapter of one volume, the new volume. He fights with monsters at least once a year, or at least once every year and a half or so that. For over a year though, he has not released a new volume. And then I again a good like half a year ago, I joined this Facebook group that's a fan, and I asked what happened to him. He's like, he showed me this one thing where like apparently he was in a coma for a while, and so like, oh shit. And like and just recently and literally November of 2024, November of 2025, he got better, recovering, and is now hanging around with family. And they did say that once he gets a little better around like mid to late January, he'll start writing again. Like, oh great, that's awesome. He's still alive. He's perfectly healthy now. Like and
my story.
I mean, like I won't go with like let's get right back to now. Like no, like I'm happy. He's okay. He's fine, and he's taking time for himself to get the better paid, because you know like post recovery though is a giant bitch.
Yeah.
But anyway, it did say that he's back to begin writing again around like mid to late January or early February, and so I'm hoping though he might release his new work on maybe on and I think either at the end of or the start of the third quarter of 2026. Hopefully, but overall, I still have a lot of like literature RPGs and I'm listening to, and just recently they released on Primal Hunter, which is also another very good one. Basically, what it is though is that the story for that one though is that they introduced this one called the System into the new universe, and apparently the universe that the main character stars in is on the 93rd universe. And it goes off of that there's like a system stuff they deal with, actual game stats, and also the whole multiverse thing, and sitting with the other one called the System Universe, and the one I'm listening on called Unbound. Basically, it's he got isekai'd, and they're not on the system, but then it's like a mixture of like system story with fantasy story, because they're also dealing with like mystical creatures and gods and stuff. Again, I can talk about the whole. I can talk about you guys' ears off about the whole these stories I'm listening to, and like it's currently my current obsession right now. It's again. I will stop right now. So go ahead, Edward. What's your current one? Actually, no. Before Edward, Jared, you want to say anything before Edward talks about his obsession?
Mine's is pretty short, because again, I don't find reading all that entertaining. It's not that I don't read. It's just that
would you think I'm probably getting Audible?
Yes. For one reason. Okay, so because I gotta go on a tangent. In college, the first novel, like an actual book I read, was about this guy that was in a war. He saw his own death before the war. He goes through the war, and then sometime in his timeline apparently gets abducted by aliens. So he can breed with another person that they abducted, so they can essentially serve him, right?
Have sex.
He apparently connected with the time-traveling aliens, which were depicted as hands with eyes in the center of it. that saw essentially saw time as a moment. How do I put this? Didn't see time as a line, but saw time as things that were constantly happening. It was weird.
Oh, they're seeing it all at once.
Yes. So
Yeah, it's a common thing with like multi-dimensional beings is that the higher you go up, the easier it is for them to see things exist at the same time.
A little off tangent. Hold that thought. A little off tangent though is like I don't know. If, I'm watching these shorts about this guy who plays as God and his angel making dogs, and apparently they made a point to where like since they are God, also for clarification, that's what he's in a parody fashion. He's portraying the Judeo-Christian God. But regardless, like, and the whole entire point of the series, though, he made those like him and the angel and God are making a bunch of dogs and dog breeds, and how the humans would love it, and like and I think one of the videos that they point out is like wait a minute though, how do you know about the past and future? It's like, and we're in heaven. We're outside the bounds. We're outside the bounds of time and space.
Yeah, sort of like that.
Yeah, so the hand creatures essentially say, don't focus on like the end of the way things are, but focus in a time where you were happy. And I hated that concept because even if you did, right? Because there's a moment in time where you're the most happy, supposedly, right? Everything was good and whatnot. However, time moves on for everyone else. So it was a weird statement for me. So the book itself was about the guy and how he went to war and whatnot. So a lot of it was him going. I forgot which war though. I think it was World War One. It might have been World War Two. It was an old book. So the book itself starts off with, this is a work of fiction, and a lot of people apparently miss that. So it's him talking about going through the war, and him essentially having these flashbacks to different points of time in his life, where he, in some cases, was abducted by aliens and was used as like a breeding program. And then there was a time where he was like communicating with these alien creatures traveling through time and whatnot. So he apparently not only has a bunch of like half alien babies, he also has other kids out in the space universe that are being experimented on, apparently. But he's okay with that. Him going through the war, however, he's a piece of shit of a human being, apparently. Just gives up on life and the people that he's fighting with. So he essentially gets drafted, and then he has to go to war, and there's one of his guys in his platoon essentially is dragging his ass through the war, making sure he gets to the end of it, gets home. At some point in the book, he essentially goes to the moment of time where he sees his own death, and it's apparently where he's giving a speech, and someone in the crowd comes up and just shoots him, and then he dies, and then goes off. The guy runs off into the crowd, so no one sees who actually kills him. So it goes back and forth, and then he goes back to the war. I honestly think it was the buddy that dragged his ass through the war, because he was complaining through the entirety of it. So at some point they're in a skirmish. They get gunned down. It was just him and I think 2 other people. So he's got his buddies dragging his ass out of the fucking trenches. They get to safety at some point, and then when they're in the infirmary, the war ends. So it's just him in the infirmary on a bunch of drugs, because I think he gets his leg shot off or something, or shot at. his buddy like loses a limb, and like after the war they lose touch. The guy that's a piece of shit that like goes through time travel or whatever, it honestly think it's him just having episodes of like, or spends the time of him remembering either dreams or like making shit up in his head. A lot of people think it's just him having like some kind of psychosis or whatever. So he becomes a writer, and he writes about like him going through the war, and it's essentially this book, right? And at the end of it, he gives a speech about accepting an award or whatnot, and he's giving this speech, and then he gets shot, and as he's bleeding out in front of people at the end of the book, he's like, don't be sad, just remember me in a time before this, and I will live forever. And I'm like, that's not how it's gonna work, my guy. You're just gonna, and he did, and he's dead. And I'm like, that the entirety, when I was reading it, I hated the book. I'm like, I want to punch the main character in the face. I understand the guy, his buddy that drove them out of it. I honestly think it was him that came up and shot him, right? Because he essentially wasted his war life trying to bring this guy out of to make sure he's alive so he could go home. I'm like, I just hate you. What the fuck?
That's one of the things that I don't. That's one of the things that I have a thing about books or audiobooks or books in general is that or in other forms of media as well, like TV shows, anime and stuff. Like if you don't like the overall story, or in most cases if you don't like the main character, then in the overall sense you probably won't like the series altogether. That's one of the reasons why I stopped listening to the Avatar Yang Chen books on Audible. Is that I finished the Kyoshi book. The Kyoshi books, her character and her story is phenomenal. The Yang Chen books, I had to like stop for a while and go back into it. It's all because the fact that Yang Chen's character is like not as likable compared to like Aang, Korra, or Kyoshi. The matters like yeah, she does again, spoiler alert a good time spoiler alert for the Yang Chen novels. Like Yang Chen did a lot of shady stuff, and like I actually emphasize more with this one Wild Tribe boy named Kavik, where the Yang Chen, and like after he had again prospectively. It was merited, and the fact that Kavik actually betrayed Yang Chen, but the fact that ever since the betrayal, one, Yang Chen forced him to come back to his group, and two, he allowed her and she allowed her group to look down on him, and all because of that he made that one mistake. It's like, okay, Yang Chen, you need to calm down. You're forcing him to work for you, and you're allowing your group to actually talk down on him. Like, what the fuck? And ever since that part, though, I just stopped. And I haven't gone back to it since, but I might want to, because I want to finish the story. Because like deep down, I was actually it seemed like they were planning to actually ship on Kavik and Yang Chen, but I don't know. Because of that, how she was treating him was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop here.
No worries. Anyways, so it's the only book I legitimately read. Like I sat down and read, and again, with me in reading, there's a lot of translation going on in my head because I'm a visual person. I see, I learn things by seeing it. I am a somewhat audio person, so the only other book I read, or quote unquote read, is an audio book. I Am Legend, the actual book that the movie was based off of. I saw the movie first. Keep in mind, again, I am not a literate person. I don't read. Well, it's not again that I don't that I can't read. I just prefer not to. So the first book I legitimately sat down and read, and it took me, I think, 6 months, because it was roughly, because again I was doing it for school. It was my English teacher that like, this is my favorite book, Yes, it is a selfish request, but this is a requirement reading. And I'm like, okay. So I read it for the class. I didn't read in class, but I read it because I was taking that class. Again, I hated it. I liked all the other concepts around the book. I felt like, again, if it was correct, like if it was the guy, the actual author's, supposedly telling of his war, right? His what do you call it? Biography. I think it would work better if it was like a somewhat truthful story, and him just saying, "Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if these events actually happened, but this is what what the experience was." But no, it was supposed to be him as a work of fiction. So I'm like, I don't like this work of fiction. This is not. I don't. Why didn't you just stick with the alien story rather than this telling of the history? Like, legitimately, I don't like you as a character because of it. So it took me 6 months to actually go through all that. I passed the class because, again, I like I told the teachers, like, I just hate this book. I like it's this is a piece of shit. I don't even like the way he formatted the storyline. It's confusing as fuck, and like, sure, but what happened to his like alien kid babies, right? Or if like he had a wife, like didn't they have a kid or something, or was there any explanation about him not being able to conceive a kid? So he's all like,
you
yeah,
didn't even mention that he was Will Smith in the book.
No. Okay, I will get to I Am Legend later. I'm talking about the first book. And again, see, this is what I hate about it, is because I can't even remember the name of the book. All I can tell you is that it's a sci-fi book, right? When you start the book, it legitimately reads, the first page to the reader says, "This is a work of fiction." And then it goes on from there. The rest of the book is supposedly a retelling of his events in the war. Again, I don't know who it was written by. Couldn't tell you the name of the book. I read it in college, and to this day, I'm just unwilling to look up to see where it is because I can't figure out the name of the book. And I hated it so much, I just don't want to go back to it. And supposedly, the reason why the English teacher had it as a requirement reading is because he's one of the foremost writers, or essentially where sci-fi started, and as a, like, fiction, like as a form of entertainment and reading. So that's why he required it as a form of reading, because that's where he started. I'm like, interesting. I like that, but however, I hate your book. It's just garbage. So track a couple years after that, and I mean like 6-10. This was college, so I don't even know when I stopped college, and I got a job, and again, most of my entertainment is from YouTube. So I started watching this camping YouTuber. So he goes out and does camping. I think this particular one does review on camping gear in particular. And at some point he goes like, I'm reading this book. It's the book of like the I Am Legend. It's like the actual book that the movie was based on. And most of you probably know the movie with Will Smith in it. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that movie. That was actually a pretty good movie. That, and I like Will Smith. So Will Smith is an actor, fantastic gentleman. So he's all like, I'm reading this book, so if you want to read the book along with us, we could do like a book club thing. So just comment in the next movie or next video about you, what you thought of the book and whatnot. So he had the actual book, I Am Legend, and I'm like, oh cool, I want to do that. So I tried to look up the book, couldn't find like a digital copy. I think I could have ordered online, like an actual hard copy of it, but I'm like, there's got to be a way to like rent this, right? So I try to go to my public library. They don't have it. I went to they don't have it. I'm like, okay, whatever. What I found is a free audio version of the book online. So I downloaded that. And it took me an hour. Again, an hour versus 6 months of the audiobook, and I fucking love it. And what surprised me the most is the differences between the movie and the book. Is in the movie, Will Smith, to me, was fighting a bunch of zombies. The book was actually about vampires, and I did not know that.
Wait.
Yeah.
How do you get zombies from those things? Pale skin, sharp teeth, they're zombies?
To me, there were zombies. He was fighting zombies.
Afraid of sunlight, they're zombies? Like, where do you get zombies from that?
When I watched the movie, I'm like, Will Smith, being a badass, he's fighting zombies. To be fair, I don't remember the end of the movie. But I was listening to this book, and it is talking about the guy, and then again, I was surprised on how much focus it was around the character. I'm like, okay, this makes sense, because again, as a reader, you don't see anything. So there's a lot of description of the gentleman, how the character acts, what kind of person he is. I'm like, okay, so this is a gentleman, he had a wife and kids, right? They're going through a whole quarantine thing because there's this like thing that's bringing back the dead, or supposedly bringing back the dead. Again, I think that's where I got zombies, because like I assume there's people coming back to life, right? And his wife gets infected. She gets really sick, so he ends up burying his wife. And he essentially gets holed up in his old house, and he apparently, if he travels out during the day, it's fine. Most of the places is clear, but at night, like, they start hunting for people. And then this is where I learned that they're vampires, right? Because the main way they killed them was through like staking them. So they again, vampires, you stake them through the heart, they die. Interesting thing about the book, there's a stint where he becomes focused on trying to find a cure, because at one point at night, his wife comes back to essentially haunt them, so he has at night listen to his wife wail on the door to open the door and try to coax them out, so she essentially could feed on him. And he's beside himself because essentially he's the only man in this entire town that's like still alive. There's another vampire, or what I thought was a zombie, that apparently was more intelligent. That was his neighbor, and he still remembers stuff before he turned. So at night, it's just him arguing with his neighbor, because his neighbor's just yelling at him to fucking come out, be a man and fight him like a real man, because apparently when you become a vampire zombie thing, you become big, bald, like drunk neighbor guy.
Yeah. Apparently you also become impervious to bullets, apparently, according to the Wikipedia.
I think he learns that some of them are strong enough to actually be awake at during the day. They weren't invulnerable to the sun, they're just awake. And then some of them, they have to sleep at night, otherwise they'll just run out of energy. So what he would do at night was like make a bunch of stakes, and then in the morning he would go out and clear out a building to collect food and supplies and stuff. And when he finds like rooms of like these vampires just sleeping, essentially he stakes them to make sure they're dead. And he has this whole moment of him like feeling remorse because he essentially finds a family, and he has to stake these not only women but children. And he's like the most thing that apparently he hates, or like that drives him mad, because a lot of the vampires are essentially, because they run hot, they're nude. So he finds the room of like these essentially half dead sleeping vampire women, like just bare chested, and he looks at it and he thinks, and he's not like, what drives me most is the women. And I'm like,
I could do it. I could do it right now.
Like, but like he can't bring himself to, you know, do the business with a corpse, or let alone a living one, because if he tries something like that, it will wake up and then attack him. So he essentially just starts staking them, and and if it's more than one, he has to do kill some of them simultaneously, otherwise it will alert the horde, you know. So he starts staking these vampires, and he gets pretty good at it. And he at some point learns how to essentially test blood, and he picks up books from a library, and he essentially becomes scientific, and then he starts realizing, oh, this is not like, it's not supernatural, it's scientific. So essentially what's happening is that he realized that there's an enzyme in people's blood that essentially can't that takes over the corpse or the body. The interesting thing is he learns that it's essentially extraordinarily weak to sunlight, and he's all like, wait, how does that be? Because he's like some of these vampires or whatnot apparently regenerate. Like if you cut off their leg, they'll regenerate, but at night. But if you expose their blood to sun, apparently it starts melting and counteracting like the enzyme that keeps the body alive, and it starts killing itself. So he realizes, oh, I'm not staking their heart. I'm just making a big enough wound where the light shines in and causes this effect that like starts killing the host. So he realized he doesn't have to stake the heart. He just has to make a big enough wound and expose it to sunlight for it to start. So he realized, I've been wasting all of this time just making stakes. So he starts making other weapons. At some point in his travels, he sees a person out in the middle of this field in this broad sunlight, and realizes it's another survivor. And the first time in years he actually spoke, because there's no one around. He didn't have to talk to anyone. He just started reading. All his conversations are internal. He tries to say something, but all that comes out of his mouth is just a grunt and like loud, just vocal noises. And he realized that he barely remembers how to speak, and he manages to get out a "Hey, hello," and the person in the field turns around, looks at him, and fucking bolts. And I'm like, that makes sense. A perfectly random stranger appears in front of you, and like this, what I thought was a zombie apocalypse, apparently it's just like a vampire apocalypse. A complete stranger looks at you and saw like, this gentleman survived an apocalypse. He's extraordinarily dangerous. I had to be careful how I interact, so that makes sense that the person will bolt, right? So instead of like saying like, oh right, that makes sense, I'm probably a terrifying looking person, because he hasn't spoken to anyone in years, he starts chasing her and runs her down, and essentially gets to a building where he corners her and like essentially traps her, and realizes, what the fuck am I doing? Looks at her and says hello. But she doesn't say anything. And then he realizes, oh, it's late. I am very far from my home base. We had to get back. So he essentially knocks her out and drags her back to his home.
Oh boy.
He kidnaps
Oh,
her.
boy. Kidnapping again.
Yeah. He kidnaps her, brings her back home. She's unconscious. He brings her and lays her in her, lays him in his like family's
This is
bed,
done by
or
the
essentially
fire.
his wife's bed. And he goes back to his room, and he's just like in turmoil about like what he's done, like what is he doing, like am I this desperate, what's the point? But he comes to it and realizes, well, this is a good thing. That means we could start over. We can like start repopulating the world and whatnot. And on top of that, because he realizes whatever immunity he has is in his blood, is probably in her blood as well. Because she didn't look infected at all, right? There was so color in her skin. She was pale, but not that pale. But he chalked it up to just malnutrition because she was extraordinarily frail. Later, he finds out she's a hybrid. So she is the child of a survivor like him that now has the antibodies to the enzyme. So she does have the infection in her, but it doesn't affect her because again she has antibodies. So she's like this weird hybrid zombie thing that can essentially survive this sunlight. He then finds out essentially he's been living in this apocalypse world for years, and most of humanity is dead, and there are small camps and groups of people or hybrid people that are out there, and they've built their own communities. So essentially she's just a scout and realizes, oh, does that mean they're gonna come for me? And she's like, yes, but not what you think, right? So there's a point where essentially she escapes because his neighbor, again, still antagonist. He can't bring himself to kill his neighbor apparently because it's the only way he can communicate with someone else essentially. But even though it's a vampire that can barely remember how to speak, and then it's just him arguing with his neighbor essentially. So there is this time spent with her where they're having conversations and they're communicating like they're like an actual couple. All in the meantime, he's in this turmoil of technically he's holding her prisoner. He doesn't want to let her go because he doesn't want to be lonely, but she's not exactly there to be friends with him, and she's trying to get back to her own camp or whatever. But at some point they actually develop a relationship, and then they're communicating, and she warns them like, yeah, so my people are gonna come for you essentially to study you, because you're the only human, or like human before the apocalypse, that survived and is still living. So she escapes, busts through the house. He jumps in his car, trying to chase after her. But because she's essentially one of them, they don't pay attention to her. So she essentially escapes through the crowd of vampires. He's trying to chase her down in the car. Gets knocked out, wakes up, and somehow survives the onslaught of vampires. Get back in I think he steals another car, and then gets back to his home, seals it up before the night ends. He realizes that they're gonna come from him, and she warns them to just run. Otherwise, they will come for him, take him back, and then essentially dissect him. But instead of running, he holds up in his house, waits for them, and when the group of hybrid vampires come and get him, he has a showdown with them, and he's all like, you know why we're here? It's like, yeah, I know why you're here. And it's like, with that said, I'm willing to work with you, but I gotta see the girl again, right? Because he developed a relationship with her. So instead of killing him, because there was because it was essentially his entire like SWAT team, and he takes out like 3 of them, and it's all like, well, essentially you're coming with us, whether you like it or not. They really didn't want to kill him, so they agreed to bring him back so he could see the one girl they essentially kidnapped. He essentially is arrested, and he was going to be put on trial. The end of the book was him looking down into the crowd of hybrid people and realizes he is the only human left in the world, and they're going to look on him like some kind of animal, some kind of like thing to be tested and whatnot, to be studied. And he realizes, yeah, this is where I end. And he kills himself. And the end of the book was him. It's like they're gonna wonder why. They're gonna look at me and consider me a legend. And that's the end of the book. And I thought that was fantastic. That was amazing. It was a big juxtaposition of him trying to hold on to his own humanity, and him becoming essentially an animal or a thing of a monster, right? This creature or this story of this thing, or essentially in a short word, a legend, and he becomes a story for the new generation to tell. And I'm like, that was amazing. I love that. And I'm like, I got nothing of that from the movie. They should have done this.
Yeah. Well, they probably did, because the I Am Legend with wasn't the first attempt at a movie. The one that I'm more familiar with is the Omega Man, which is basically, I think it was actually closer to the book. A fun fact about this. You left out the part where he finds out that he has antibodies in his body because he got bit by a vampire bat.
Yeah.
That made him immune to the virus, apparently.
Yeah. So there's a lot of his flashback of him and his wife and his daughter. I didn't want to bring that up because it's extraordinarily sad. There's also a stint of him and the dog, which is it's also extraordinarily sad. But yeah, like the main story was about him trying to hold on to his humanity, and him kidnapping a woman.
Yeah. So he's gonna be put on trial for kidnapping, and what we're gonna do? Just like,
no, they were gonna put him on trial for murder. He killed a bunch of.
Well, he tried to adopt him.
Yeah, but like it's essentially.
Yeah, but you gotta look. Okay, you gotta look at it from this perspective. They're now the human society. He's the weird creature that lives in the fucking dark part of the forest. They're trying to catch him because they want to know what he is. They want to study him. But he's already lashed out at them. He's proven to be too dangerous, which is what's probably going to happen if we ever find out Bigfoot is real. Probably going to be a bunch of people shooting Bigfoot.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of games about hunting it, right?
I mean, if he kills anybody, it's going to become a thing. And
I mean, I get that, but the thing is, though, you have to also take into consideration that they brought that on themselves because they weren't hostile. They didn't even try to actually talk to him or anything.
Well, if you recall, he didn't talk for a really long time either. It was only after he met the survivor. So chances are, they probably didn't think he could communicate with them. They probably thought he was like a wild animal, so they didn't even try.
Because a lot of the other like intelligent vampires were extraordinarily aggressive. So like his neighbor that was able to speak, right, would antagonize others vampire things to be the essentially big dog. So a lot of it was animalistic actions. So anything that could survive in this environment essentially had to be like this wild creature. And it like, so if they find this human being or this thing that's living in this area, they gotta assume it's extraordinarily dangerous. So yeah, they came at him full force. They had fucking riot gear, like guns and shit, and I'm like, holy shit. But the guy was apparently extraordinarily trained, so yeah, he was out there taking them out like one by one. And then when they had a final standoff, he was all like, I give up if you take me to the one girl. They're all like,
you get that pussy.
They had to stop and realize that they're in extraordinary danger because they were on his home turf, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Couldn't the girl just warn them that he is intelligent and they can be talked to at the very least?
Apparently, she tried. There was a moment where he does talk to her, and he's all like, she's all like, yeah, they're gonna put you on trial essentially. Figure out what to do with you.
Think about it like this: if you knew that there was a dangerous tiger in the woods, and you were like, I'm not, because it's killed a bunch of people, and then some woman comes back and goes, yeah, I'm in a relationship with this tiger and it can talk. Are you gonna fucking believe this bitch?
I mean, you're saying like the fact that the new human society are so mutated that they just think regular humans who are also their same bipedal shape and mental accuracy is a different animal altogether.
Yes,
they are.
To them, okay, there were several generations of these hybrid people, right? There's no longer any other humans. The only record of an actual human are in their books or like stories that they heard when they were kids, right?
It would be like if you met a caveman in the modern era. It's like they're similar, but they're too different from evolution.
This thing from history is still out there and alive. They're all like, holy shit, let's go figure out what this thing is. They weren't looking for a cure. They were looking to study where they came from, essentially, because they didn't need a cure. They were immune to the enzyme. They could be in the sunlight. The only real difference is that most of them are pale. That's the only remnants of the infection. They're out living. They're out gathering supplies, making a new society. They're crops and stuff. And then all of a sudden, here comes a flesh person, and they're all like, "Holy fuck! Where did you come from?" It's like finding a dinosaur, and it's vicious.
Yeah. Well, here's a little fun thing for you.
Again, overall, I'm just arguing. Again, they brought that on themselves. That they can't really blame him for them. He's just trying to defend himself.
Nobody's blaming any of that. Other than characters in the book, they're literally meant to be drawn as a parallel to humans while being humanoid, but also being different because they're just immune to the virus. They're just a hybrid vampire, whatever. But they're also they're just a reflection of humanity. It's like that idea that those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
The guy, technically, again, because he had antibodies to the infection.
He's a vampire.
He's technically no longer human, but to them, he was the closest thing to human or what they were prior. But they're like generations down the line that they no longer remember or have anyone or any records of history before. So to them, it's a dinosaur, like a vicious creature.
Here's a fun fact to kick Jared's love of this book down. So, are you familiar with a Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man? They parodied it on The Simpsons. Treehouse of Horrors, the one where the aliens picked up the Simpsons and was like feeding them, because the premise of the idea was, they're fattening us up so they can eat us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the guy that wrote that short story that's based off of, Damon Knight, he said that the book would be a lot better if the plot didn't limp, and if the guy didn't fucking encumber the story with childish set of scientific rationalization. So like the idea that the vampire bat bit him and made him immune. Damon Knight's like, that's stupid. And that's saying it from me, Damon Knight, the guy that wrote a book about people who thought aliens were gonna eat them.
Yeah, I didn't care for him learning the scientific method or whatever. I understand why, because supposedly he's just a guy, right? He's not like a scientist, right? He learned all this stuff after the fact, after like the shutdown and the essentially the apocalypse. He lived through it, and supposedly say he had memories of like jobs he's had before, right, or skills before that would make sense. But supposedly he's just a family man that worked at a factory. So the only real like skill set he had before was like making a car run. So like when he jumps into his car and starts it, there was no other mention of him driving around. Which makes sense, because essentially if you make noise, it draws attention to you. So even if the vampires are asleep at night, the ones that are conscious or are able to stay awake will know where you're at. So most of the time he traveled on foot. If he did travel on car, he would go to areas where essentially he's already cleared out. So when they mentioned like him jumping in a car, I'm like, well, that makes sense. He was a mechanic at a factory. So like him maintaining a car even at years after the apocalypse would make sense. Especially since like he essentially steers another car. Somehow that one's still running, or able to still run, and then he drives it back to his place because he wrecks his first car, which I assume was a Cadillac just because of the area he lived in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So him hot wiring a car makes sense, because again, he had skills of that before, but him learning to like test blood and using the scientific method was him learning
probably
from
why
books.
they made made Will Smith's character a fucking scientist.
Yeah, so that's a lot easier than to like tell people like, oh yeah, he essentially becomes a scientist by reading books. So I'm like, cool. I don't need the information that he's reading. I just need the information that he is reading books about this field. They don't have to like go into the test blood, what the enzymes do. Whole thing about like mushrooms, and I'm like, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, the good thing is that I'm not reading this, and it's not a translation of letters to images to me. It's just me listening to someone else, or essentially someone talking at me, and I'm listening to the story. The interesting part, again, bringing back to me not being able to divide my attention. When I was listening to the story, I legitimately couldn't do anything else. Like, I had a sketchbook I was gonna draw while I was listening to it. I couldn't. I was just sitting there staring at an audio file slide down my screen as I'm listening to the story. I feel like the people in it was like the 60s when TV wasn't a thing. It might have been the 50s actually.
It's supposed to be the 50s, I think.
I think it was the 50s. Like, I don't know when TV became regularly prevalent. But like, I remember an old episode of I Love Lucy when they started up a radio, and it takes a while for the tubes to heat up. So they're just sitting there in front of the radio, just staring at it, and Lucy goes like, "What are we doing? Like, the tubes are heating up. We don't have to stare at anything. It's just all audio." So they're all like, "Oh, right." And I'm like,
yeah, it was around the 1940s that TVs started becoming a thing, because they had crude ones in the 1920s, but I'm assuming those were for like overly rich people, and there probably wasn't a lot to like do anyways.
Yeah, so
mostly
like
sound waves, so
didn't become like prevalent in like family homes until later on. And again, it's the interesting thing, because primary entertainment before that was the radio or music, essentially.
Your
So,
timey radio.
Yeah. So they were sitting around the radio waiting for it to heat up, and they're like, "What are we doing? We don't have to stare at it." And it was me staring at this audio file, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm that guy. I can't divide my attentions. Like, I'm focused on this." Same thing with me in movies. I will sit there and watch a movie, and I won't do anything else. Like, every once in a while, if I watch a movie with like other people, I will look over and realize they're on their phone, and I'm like, "Aren't you watching the movie?" It's like, "I am." And I'm like, they're on TikTok or something, and there's again 2 different screens on the same screen. And I'm like, how does this generation work? That doesn't make sense to me.
They don't. They really don't.
But essentially, that's the only other book I finished, right? And I actually enjoyed that one. And again, like, I'm not a literal person, so I don't go out my way to try to find books or whatnot. But like, I had to be extraordinarily selective of what I read, because like, there's just gonna be some books I'm just gonna hate, and that's why I prefer movies, or in this case audiobooks, just because it's a lot easier. If I don't like it, I can stop it and then we'll go on. If I try to read it physically, then it's just a lot of translation. It's gonna be me making notes, trying to figure out what they meant by this and whatnot. And yeah, I didn't enjoy my spent of actually reading. But yeah, that's my only 2 books I've read completely. I've read textbooks cover to cover before. I've read like pages of like Wikipedia articles. I've read all sorts of other stuff. I've read thousands of magazines about cars and other things that I found entertaining. But when it comes to like actual books, I'm Oonga Boonga Caveman.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
so.
Thank you for watching. If you want to see more, click here. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!